that is probably one of the most deadly approaches. Like with continuous improvement, like I said, it's the bottom up. But there are organizations where the leadership is constantly. This is I noticed this in government, because in government, you have an election every 4 years. That's the government cycle as opposed to economic cycles. Every 4 years you have an election. You get a new group of people, and they come in and they go, well, we're going to fix things. We're going to do things different. And it's like, I've noticed this with staff. Everybody on staff goes, here we go again. You know, you have a group of non-professionals who don't know anything about management or processes come in. They were good at one thing, and that was getting elected. And that all hell can break loose with that, when that kind of, just change for the sake of change occurs.
Everybody, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter, the author podcast where we get to meet great authors from around the world. And I love when authors that come on who have been writing for a long time understand how to do this. But then we can also talk about the publishing side of it, which is another whole side to writing, which doesn't get quite as much attention. But I'm excited to have Richard here on the podcast where we're talking about his journey as an author. And if you're looking for a book that will change your life, right, Richard? Yeah. It's the book. It's right in the title. You got to go check it out, The Book of Change. Richard, welcome to Living in the Next Chapter.
Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Richard, tell everybody where you are in this big world of ours.
I'm in beautiful Portland, Oregon, where the weather today is 65 degrees, and we beat the heat dome. It's on the East Coast and Canada.
Yeah, and here, yeah. I don't understand why we're hotter today than California, which does make no sense geographically to me at all. But anyways, there you go. It's fun. Well, we're going to turn up the heat here. How's that? Good segue?
Exactly.
We're going to chat about writing and publishing and about your book, The Book of Change. So, Richard, you have been writing for a long time in a lot of different areas and avenues. What is the one thing that you love about writing as a creative person? Why do you keep coming back to writing?
Well, I like to say that writing is in my DNA. My grandfather was a writer. He was an author of several books, mainly fiction. He actually published something I wrote when I was 12 years old, and that's where I basically got started. So I've been writing ever since. I've written over 100 articles for different periodicals, nationally, internationally. For 4 years, I was the editor of a professional journal. So I'm used to the process of editing. So I love writing, and it's, that's just what I like to do. And this book is kind of the culmination of that.
When did you write The Book of Change?
I did it in about 2022, which was problematic for me because it was, as soon as I had finished writing the book, the COVID pandemic struck. So,
yeah, right.
For me, the writing was easy. The publishing was not, because of COVID. So many things just came to a standstill. So basically, I had to learn the publishing business to get my book out there.
So is this a self-published book then for you?
Pretty much, yeah. I actually created my own kind of indie publishing house called New Meridian Press, formed an LLC, which is a legal kind of construct that I would suggest anybody that publishes the book, we can go into that. But and then pick it from there. And, now it's available on Amazon, Ingram Sparks. You can get it through Walmart, Target. It's over, it's basically available internationally through 12 different countries, at least 12 different, more than a dozen countries. So I've been able to get the book out there and get it, and get it circulated. But I had to learn a lot about publishing to do that.
Had you ever published something before this then?
Yeah, I published, like I said, I wrote a lot of articles. I published
Yeah.
some reports. What really helped me was I used Upworks, which is basically a venue that you can hire folks to do different things. For example, the doing podcasts. I have a lady in the Philippines that books podcasts for me. But to get the book started, I had people who helped me through Upwork who helped take my kind of word perfect document and create an ebook, paperback, hardcover, um, books. So I use folks for advertising. Somebody helped me. Even though I'm kind of website savvy, I had somebody help me with create the landing page, which is doctorate.com, and with advertising on Amazon, Ingram Sparks, people like that needs its own set of kind of protocols to set them up. So I had a lot of professional help from folks like that.
What was one of your big learning curves as becoming a publisher, not just an author?
Just the process of how to get your book out there.
Right.
It's just in terms of working it through these different venues I talked about, Amazon, Ingram Spark, and Google Books, folks like that. And there's a lot of different ways to advertise, whether it's actually direct advertising through paid advertising, say on Amazon, doing podcasts like yours to get the message out. Those are all things that I hadn't ever dealt with before. And that was a pretty steep learning curve, and I've been really working at it hard now for the last couple of years.
Have you had the opportunity to help any other authors through your company to help get their books published as well?
No, not really. I mean, I focused. I have a lot of help from people, kind of colleagues who, my doctorate work was in organizational psychology. So this was kind of my book is an outcome of my dissertation, but I had a lot of help from different colleagues in the field, even people like Nicholas Taylor, who wrote the Black Swan, which is like the book about mega change events. So I got a lot of help from folks like that. So, but I haven't really spent any time working with other individuals trying to get their books. But I'd be glad to provide any free information if folks have questions about getting their book out there. What specifics on what they need to do and how to go about it, because it is for somebody, and I'm sure you've talked to folks about this on your podcast. It's a steep learning curve for folks that haven't. Right. Like I said, I'm lucky in that I like to write. Writing the book was really not a problem. I mean, it took time and effort. But that part was not difficult. And I could imagine a lot of folks who have an idea for a book and want to get it out there if they haven't really spent a lot of time writing and publishing is tough.
I'd agree with that.
Don't miss words about it. It is not easy.
No, it'd be interesting for some of the authors that I know that listen to this show. They're at the beginning stages. So to find somebody like you that they could ask questions of and kind of get your opinion on some next steps, I think that'd be great for them to reach out to you. Yeah,
I'd be glad to. Like I said, they can reach me through the website.
Talk a little bit more about your background too, Richard. Like, tell us a little bit about your career and kind of some of the things you've done in the past.
Well, I had 30 years. I'm the kind of person who never knew what they wanted to be when they grew up. Okay, I started out years and years ago wanting to be an archaeologist until I realized it was digging in dirt a lot.
I
spent 30 years as a manager in urban planning. One of my last jobs was actually here in the Portland metro area of 1.5 million people as the planning director for everything from land use to transportation, solid waste, water, sewer, you name it. And I transitioned, actually, in my last job, I hired a firm to do what's called a performance audit of my organization. And I liked it so much, I quit and went to work for the consulting firm doing performance audits. And
Yeah.
at the same time, I went back to school to a tier 1 research university. I had to work on a doctorate in organizational psychology. And the combination of those things, being a manager in the past, a consultant, academic studies, I came around to the idea that there's a better way to do performance audits, and that's what organizational change management is about. And that's how I ended up writing the book, was using all those resources of management experience, consulting work, actually working with organizations, trying to help them, be more performance efficient. And all that experience brought me around to writing the book.
How does an organization know that it's time for a change?
Well, two ways. The one way is when it hits the fan. Most times when I'm called in, it's it's already hit the fan, and somebody, whether it's a board of directors or a city council or a board of supervisors or whoever is overseeing the organization, turns around to the person running the organization and says something's wrong. Either the stakeholders are complaining, the staff's complaining, we're losing money. What are you going to do about it? And at that point, when it's a little late, they call in a consultant to help them out and fix the problem. The other way to approach this is through organizational change management. It's not on the back end, but on the front end. And you're kind of front loaded, and you have people who you build change into the process. So continuous improvement becomes a way, a lifestyle, a way of doing business. So you're constantly listening to your staff, the stakeholders, about what needs to be changed, where there might be a problem, and you avoid those kind of problems altogether. But I'll tell you, most organizations have a human resource director. They have somebody who's in charge of risk management, but they don't have anybody in charge of change management.
Right.
Only smart organizations will have somebody whose job is continuous improvement and working to make positive changes that are needed. The problem is if you go to an organization in trouble, and you go to this and kind of on the back end, and you go to the staff, the response is usually, well, we always did it this way.
Right.
And there's tremendous resistance to change because you come in and basically say, look, something here is really screwed up. And everybody immediately becomes, it's not me, it's not my fault, it's
right.
him or them or whatever. So, if you build continuous improvement is something that the Japanese learned a long time ago through Edward Deming. Was to build that into your process, and it's really, as a field, it was not even thought of until about 1947 with a guy named Kurt Lewin, who essentially created the field of organizational change management. So it's fairly new in terms of a profession and as a process.
Interesting. Why do we as humans push back so much on change? Why does that grate us so much? And is it just the fact that we're losing control of how we did things in the past, and we don't want to go to a new direction?
People are creatures of habit.
Yeah.
I mean, just think about your everyday life. I get up, take a shower, I shave, I do this, I do that, I have breakfast. I've always got to have a cup of coffee. You say, you're a creature of habit. And when somebody comes in and says, let's say you've been in an organization for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and somebody comes in and says, we're going to change the way you do things. And the immediate response is, whoa, why?
Yeah.
Why do I, everything's working just great. And you're the one who says, no, actually, they're not. And it could be, change is something that it could be internal, certainly external in terms of mergers, acquisitions, pandemics, recessions, or those are all external impacts you have to deal with. But you also have internal impacts. They could be anything from a group of people that's dysfunctional. And a lot of times, organizations are made up of people. The organization is not the problem. The people are the problem. And that's, where people become, recalcitrant, I guess. But you go into an organization after the fact, and there's a problem someplace. And a lot of times, when I go in, and do kind of the audit process and try to help them figure out what to do. What I try to do is make it a ground up process, bottom up. In other words, it isn't the boss going around saying, you're going to do this or else. We actually, with larger organizations, set up committees where we have people in groups come up with solutions. As when they're doing the work, heavy lifting, and they're providing solutions, then there's some buy-in, as opposed to being told what to do. But a lot of times, like I said, sometimes it's a matter of just creating a better process to be more competitive. But sometimes there's problems with individuals.
What about leadership that seeks out to do change, mostly because they're bored? That everything's going well, the team's functioning really well, people know their roles, people are producing, but the leadership is just like, you know what? It's going to do change for the sake of change. And what kind of ripple effect that has on a team, right?
That is probably one of the most deadly approaches. Like with continuous improvement, like I said, it's the bottom up, but there are organizations where the leadership is constantly this is I noticed this in government, because in government you have an election every 4 years. That's right. Government cycle as opposed to economic cycles. Every 4 years you have an election. You get a new group of people, and they come in and they go, well, we're going to fix things. We're going to do things different. And it's like, I've noticed this with staff. Everybody on staff goes, here we go again. You have a group of non-professionals who don't know anything about management or processes come in. They were good at one thing, and that was getting elected. And that all hell can break loose with that, when that kind of, just change for the sake of change occurs.
I've heard things like, if you want to make a change in your company and you're new, start painting. Just start painting the walls. And everyone's like, oh, look, something's happening. We got new wall paint. Just little things like that is like, that just is an indicator to everyone that something new is coming along. We've got new paint. And I'm like, well,
sometimes I've got brought into an organization, what I'm told by, whether it's a board of directors or a board of supervisors, they're basically saying, look, our stakeholders, our customers are saying that something's wrong. Okay. And that's when I have to go in and deal with staff and basically say, look, whether you believe this or not, they believe this. And then you have to figure out, is this a perception problem, I actually wrote an article. It was about the culture of no. The culture of no with in government is you go to the customer service counter in a government agency, city, county, state, and you go, look, I want to do this. How do we do this? And the answer is you can't do that. Go away. You can't do that. Just like, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Well, but the fact is you can do that. There's always an onerous process to go through. If you really want to do something like change the law, but that government agencies in particular are terrible about that. And it's totally a matter of perception. It's not a matter of reality. It's how you treat people on the front end and how they go away feeling like, how you really cared about what they had you had any empathy for them at all. But their idea, what they wanted to do or not do.
When we think about this in context of a plane, for example, an airplane, an airplane has enough fuel to get them from point A to point B. There's a point in the trip where there's a point of no return. They don't have enough fuel to go back to where they started from. They don't have enough fuel to make a change. So there's that line where they know there's no more changes available. Where is it for companies and organizations? Where is their point of no return?
Well, I don't think there is one.
Okay.
For a company, or well, let's just say an organization. If people within the organization, I mean, look, there's some external impacts that are beyond changing. Okay, a recession that causes layoffs.
Yeah. Right.
In a company, those kinds of things. You're pushed into a damage control mode. The COVID pandemic's a good example. I mean, it's just the disruptions in supply chain, the impact on companies was beyond the point. It was, basically it was almost like having some kind of like getting chemo for cancer. The solution was almost worse than what's going on. But for most organizations, if they really put in an effort, if you can get the staff behind it, if the leadership actually leads and everybody is going in the same direction, you can bring about positive change. Now, again, it's better to do it on the front end as change management than on the back end as risk management.
Right.
So the more you can keep communication between leadership, staff, and stakeholders, the better off you are.
Right.
And that the problem of organizations, that communication breaks down, isn't there. And it can often be hostile.
So when your key people start to leave, your clients find another supplier or another alternative to your business. Those are kind of indicators, maybe little warning lights on that plane dashboard that something's going on, right?
And they're in the coal mine. I think that's where, communication is key. If you have positive communication with your staff, they can tell you when they notice things going wrong, they could be fixed. The problem is with some organizations, they're not listening to their staff. The other part of that is listening to the stakeholders. That's always important. It doesn't matter whether it's a voter or a consumer. You have, it's important to have kind of feedback loops. Unfortunately, like I said, in government, every 4 years it can go sideways, and it doesn't exactly, in terms of rational change, that sometimes just goes out the window.
So chasing change just to be a change maker without a plan, probably not the best, right? As a frequency thing, just to be changing all the time.
If you're a new CEO or a new city councilman, mayor, governor, whatever. There's this inclination to. I remember one of the last Republican governors of the state of Oregon was a guy named Vicatia, and he basically said, "Look, if it ain't broke, don't fix it." Mm-hmm. And I mean, coming into a situation like that, whether like being a new governor, or a new mayor, new CEO, I mean, that's good advice. Just don't go around trying to fix stuff that isn't broken.
Yeah.
Try to find out what needs to be fixed, whether it's from the stakeholders or the staff or your oversight board. A lot of what I do as a consultant is go into an organization, and I'll spend the first couple weeks just talking to people. I mean, I'll go out in the field and talk to stakeholders one-on-one. I'll sit down with staff from the front counter all the way up to to the management, to the oversight board, and that's where you really start to sift through it and find out what is really the problem. Because what you are told is the problem isn't necessarily so. It may be a perception problem, but what is causing it, what is actually, and that's, I mean, one of the things that I came around to in my book was I came up with a diagnostic model, and the diagnostic model is based on one created by the National Institute of Health, because how you diagnose health of an organization isn't much different than how you diagnose health of a person. So I've used that medical model, and it works really well in terms of, you can do a lot of interviews and determine what the problems are, but you need a kind of structured diagnostic model, and I really like that one. It works really good.
Yeah, so get away from treating the symptoms and go to the cause instead.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
How you diagnose what the issue really is. In other words, it's like when you go to the doctor and you tell them certain things. I mean, you may think that you have X, Y, Z, but through that kind of diagnostic process and the tests they do and everything else, they may come up with a totally different, good or bad. Sometimes you think it's worse than it is, but they may come up with a whole different diagnosis, and that's really the key. The kind of the heart of the model that I built was that diagnostic piece.
Excellent. Who would you say is your ideal reader, Richard, for the Book of Change?
Anybody who is a manager of an organization of any kind.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to necessarily, I mean, when I say a manager, it could be a CEO, could be a mayor. It could be somebody who's a manager of a smaller working group within the organization that's having problems. So the organization is scalable in that sense.
Okay.
Any kind of organization that consists of people, it could be public, private, could be a nonprofit, could be a utility. I've worked with all those.
So it has a wide range of people that would be interested in this from an audience perspective.
Sure. And finding out what needs to be changed is, I'll give an example of a nonprofit. I was on the board of a nonprofit in Taos, New Mexico, and I was asked by the executive director of the nonprofit to help them out, and the problem was their board of directors. They had been around so long that this didn't make me very popular, because they were basically a coffee club.
Okay.
They just basically met once a month in a restaurant, had coffee and BS, and they'd been, as a board, they'd been around forever, and they just, it was kind of moribund. It was just, I was brought in as a board member because it was actually my relative, my ancestor is Kit Carson. So I was brought in it was the Kit Carson Historic Museums that brought me in. It was at his house, and they owned actually several museums around the area there. That board no longer exists, so I don't feel like I'm insulting anybody. But
Yeah.
But that was in that case, it was actual the the kind of executive director who wanted to do something, who started it. It was the board. It was the problem. It wasn't the staff. It wasn't him. It was them.
Any stories that you can share with us, Richard, about your opportunity to go into a business where change was required and you were able to help this business kind of through the process of change?
Sure. I'll give you a specific example of one change. I went into it. It was, in this case, it was a county in California. And, I talked to everybody, staff, the board, stakeholders, etc. But one of the problems I found was the manager of this group was really into time management. And he had his staff report their activities in 15-minute increments. Think about that. 15 minutes. Every 15 minutes of an 8-hour day, these people were spending more time reporting what they were doing than doing.
Mm-hmm.
It was just insane. So that, there was a lot of recommendations. They made a lot of changes. A lot of times what happens is, a oversight board will just tell somebody directly, look, you have to change. You're the problem. And because organizations consist of people are the problem.
Right.
You can, how you deal with something is really up to the people that make up the organization, whether they're running it, working it, or served by it.
Is there a common thought around change within organizations that you've heard dispensed by others that you personally don't agree with, or hasn't worked for you in your situations where you would shy away from that certain belief?
In terms of in terms of recommendations, it's really, I'm not sure. I can't really attest to kind of how other people approach it.
Right.
All I know is that it has to be from the kind of the bottom up. Leadership must take it seriously. They must be the ones who initiate it. But if they don't get buy-in from everybody on board, then I think the consulting firm McKinsey said that 70% of change management initiatives fail.
Right.
And that's because they don't really know what they're doing, or the way they do it is kind of from the top down. That they don't really involve the staff. They don't bring anybody in that actually helps them, and they just basically say, "Oh, the problem is XYZ, and you better do it or else."
Right.
To the staff, and then they can't figure out why it didn't work.
Yeah.
Why it's. I'll give you a good example that that concerns me, and this is the Dodge, our Department of Government Efficiency process.
Yeah. Right.
Which basically came in and whacked people on the head. It was just a disaster in terms of people who got hired, weren't hired. They revoked it, the initial offers. People they tried to get people to, out of organizations. They shut down organizations. Now, totally understand that the government can be inefficient, but it also has serious implications for air. You about air travel.
Right.
I wouldn't want to mess around with air travel if I was taking a plane.
No, right.
It's just that approach was totally top down.
Yeah.
Did not involve really didn't involve staff whatsoever, and that was, I think was totally the wrong approach. I don't have any problem with the fact that that the administration would come in and say, look, we believe that there are a lot of efficiencies we can find. And this actually, if you look at what, and I'm not taking a Democrat versus Republican point of view on this, but if you look at how the Clinton-Gore administration approached that, they set up a national performance review agency, and their job approached it from the bottom up and they set up committees, they involved staff. It was a lengthier process, but by all accounts, it was a lot more successful at making government efficient, reducing the size of government employment. It was it was just a much better process.
Right.
So
yeah,
at a macro scale, that's something that I think could have been handled much, much better than it was. And I've talked to a lot of people, and it was just a disaster because I know one agency where they told people, well, we know we hired you, but you can't come work for us because we were told you can't. And then a month later, they said, you know what? It's okay now. You can go work for us. Like I would have, my response would have been, it would have been not good. And then people were, basically leaving left and right because they had this early retirement bailout, but they couldn't replace those people. And it's one thing if you've got you're kind of the dog catcher, but I mean, if you're running the electric grid for the nation, okay,
right,
or the aviation system, or you can just go on and on about things that are just, that are very safety related. You don't really want to screw around with those to the point where that somebody, dies.
The one thing I'm noticing on your website, bookofchange.com, around the book, you mentioned 3 E's.
Yes.
Richard. So I'd love for you to, can you kind of quickly unpack this for us? We're going to buy the book. We're going to read it in the book. But can you give us an overview?
The 3 E's are performance efficiency, cost effectiveness, and cultural empowerment. And cultural empowerment basically is getting everybody on board. Everybody is providing feedback. Everybody's you're all rowing in the same direction instead of around in circles. So those are the 3 E's that I came up with.
Okay.
In terms of what you want, those are the goals of positive organizational change management. That's what you want to. That's what you want to achieve. It isn't just about, in terms of it isn't just about cost effectiveness. The bottom line, there was a big trend, and this was going back to the kind of Clinton-Gore initiative, but there was a big trend for outsourcing. We can hire XYZ to do it cheaper. So you ended up with for-profit prison systems and things like that.
Right.
But it isn't just about cost. It isn't just the bottom line. It's also about how efficient are you really in terms of your processes, and are you really empowering people to do something positive?
Excellent. Again, the website is bookofchange.com. Yes. We'll have links for that in the show notes for you, Richard, so people can come and get the book. You do have a special offer for people around the book on your website as well. Can you talk about that?
Contact me through the website. I will give them a free PDF of the book. And
wow.
if they like what they what they read and want to get an ebook or hard copy, paperback, whatever. But yeah, I'll give them a free book and certainly free advice. There you go. Take it for what it's worth.
All right. So as we wrap up, Richard, one question for you is, how do we encourage buy-in around change? How do we prepare our team for change? And how do we kind of make change better through the process? What do we do as a leader?
I think the bottom line is communication.
Yeah.
In other words, it's not dictatorial. It's not top down. You really need between management, line staff, and stakeholders, and if there's an oversight group, which there always is, the communication between all of them is really important. You can't just tell people to do something. It's like,
right.
If you ever tried to deal with a 3-year-old.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
You're gonna do this. Oh yeah. Okay. That works really well.
Yeah. We'll see how that works out for you. Yeah.
And the incentive is if you empower people, and they want to participate. They want to make things better.
So be the change you want to see in the world, basically. That's right. So we got to go with, right? I like that.
Okay.
Good. Richard, thank you so much for doing this. Congratulations on the book.
Yeah.
And for taking all of your history and your career and lessons learned in business rooms and meetings and interviews with people, distilling it down for us and giving us something that we can use in our business today.
Yeah.
Thank you for the Book of Change. I'm really excited to have this and have you on the show.
Thanks you. It's good being here.
Excellent. Everyone, all information for Richard and the book, as always, in the show notes. I know when you get the free copy, which is very generous, Richard, that you will go buy a copy and you'll leave a review as well and let people know why you enjoy this book so much as a reader. And that'll help more people to fall in love with Richard and the Book of Change as well.
Great. Thanks.
Excellent, Richard. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks.
Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast. Glad to have you here. I just want to let you know that you can always find out what we're doing live in the moment by going to our YouTube channel. Head over to livingthenextchapter.com. There'll be a link right there. Head over to our YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, do all the things that all the YouTubers love to say. And in our YouTube channel, a couple things. You're going to get advanced listens. You're going to get the episodes that we're working on in real time. So we record and post daily on our YouTube channel. I'd love for you to give us a follow over there. As well, we're making playlists. We have over 500 episodes. So finding the right episode for you, we're trying to group things into playlists. So if you like children's books, if you like business, you like historical fiction, we're grouping our authors together to make it a little easier for you to find your favorite next author. So head over to livingthenextchapter.com. And again, I'd love to hear from you. Hearing from the listeners of the show is great. And I just want to say thank you for being a part of the podcast family. And I look forward to having you back for the next episode. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate your time and your listen. Take care.